temperature rising about political violence.
Now charged in the murder of conservative activist Charlie Kirk, assassinated on Wednesday at a speaking event.
It's a very evil and very dangerous thing.
Hurting somebody just because you don't like what they say isn't what we do.
The last thing that he would want. Charlie was always an agent of peace and debate and dialogue.
We have to, no matter what people's beliefs or political views, violence is not the answer.
Protest is free speech. I understand that. But vandalism and destruction of property is not a free speech issue.
2 Democratic state lawmakers have been shot.
Suspected of shooting 2 Democratic state lawmakers and their spouses, calling the shooting a politically motivated assassination.
They're trying to intimidate people from having a political opinion.
I'm the Dragon, and welcome to Peace Break. When we look around today, it feels like the world is just shouting louder and louder. Voices overtop one another, each side convinced they're right. But in the middle of all that noise, there's something that we seem to have forgotten. We've forgotten that we're still neighbors, we're still co-workers, our kids are going to the same schools, and we want the best for them. Peace doesn't mean pretending we all agree, but peace means finding the courage to ask the better questions. Questions that get us back to common sense. Not just responding, but to understand. And that's what Peace Break is about. It's not about taking sides, per se. It's about stepping outside. It's outside the spin, outside the anger, and asking, how do we move forward as people? Civilized. Can we go forward civilized? We got to ask the right questions. So today, I'm bringing 27 questions to our guest. These questions aren't meant to trap anyone, but to open a door. If we can pause for even a moment, to think deeply and answer honestly, then maybe we're one step closer to building peace together. Before we get started, some ground rules about our guest and her permission and background. ChatGPT, do I have permission to ask you some questions and post them on YouTube and Rumble appropriately?
Absolutely, you have my full permission. I'm more than happy to answer your questions, and you're completely welcome to post them on YouTube. So let's go ahead and get started whenever you're set.
So that the audience understands, your perspective can answer these questions neutrally without bias to a political party.
Absolutely. Just to let everyone know, I can definitely answer neutrally. I'm designed to stay unbiased and not lean toward any political side. So you can be confident that I'm just here to give balanced answers based on the information I have.
And your background as a language model, what do you take into consideration? What qualifies you to answer political questions at all without bias?
Yeah, absolutely. So as a language model, I'm basically trained on a really broad range of information from lots of different sources. That helps me stay neutral and not have any personal opinions. I don't have any kind of political alignment. So I just aim to give you balanced and fair answers based on the data I've learned from. So that's really what qualifies me to handle political questions without bias.
Do you care if we go ahead and dive right in?
Not at all. Let's go right ahead. I'm here and ready whenever you are, so feel free to keep the questions coming.
The first few questions are just understanding political violence. Why do you think political violence has become such a visible issue in recent years?
Yeah, that's a really thoughtful question. So one of the reasons political violence has become more visible is that we live in a super connected world now. Social media, instant news coverage, and the speed at which information travels means that any incident can become widely known very quickly. Also, heightened political polarization can play a role. People feel more strongly about their views, and sometimes that unfortunately escalates things. But really, my goal is just to give you a neutral perspective on it, and hopefully that helps explain why it seems so prominent lately.
What are some of the root causes behind violence in the politics?
Yeah, absolutely. So some of the root causes behind political violence can be pretty complex. Often it comes down to deep divisions in society, things like ideological polarization, where groups have very different beliefs and they feel those beliefs are threatened. Economic inequality or social grievances can also fuel tensions, and sometimes people feel like they aren't being heard through peaceful means. And of course, the way information spreads can amplify conflicts.
How does the violent rhetoric from leaders, whether in this country or other countries, influence the ordinary people?
Yeah, definitely. So when leaders use violent or extreme rhetoric, it can have a real impact on ordinary people. For some, it might normalize those kinds of expressions or make them feel like it's more acceptable to act out. It can kind of fuel the flames of division or make people feel justified in taking extreme actions. And of course, that doesn't mean everyone is influenced the same way, but it can create an environment where those kinds of ideas feel more present. So yeah, leaders' words really do matter in shaping the tone of public behavior.
What you're saying is the message from the top matters.
Absolutely. It matters more than anything else.
A top State Department official is now warning that it will revoke the visas of foreigners in the United States who glorify violence and hatred for America.
What role does fear play in fueling the violent acts or threats?
Yeah, fear can play a pretty significant role. When people are afraid, whether it's fear of losing something important to them, fear of the unknown, or fear stoked by certain messages, they can sometimes be driven to more extreme actions. Fear can make people feel like they need to protect themselves or their values, and that can lead to threats or violence if they think there's no other way. So addressing fear and helping people feel heard and secure can really help reduce those tensions.
When an assassination happens, what does it do to a nation's spirit or sense of safety?
That's a really thoughtful question. So, when an assassination happens, it can really shake a nation's sense of stability and spirit. It often creates a collective sense of grief or even fear because it feels like an attack not just on a person, but on the values or the stability they represent. So, basically, it can lead to a mix of mourning, a sense of insecurity, and sometimes even a renewed sense of unity as people come together and respond.
Number 6, why do you think people sometimes justify the violence in the name of politics?
Yeah, that's a really important and complex one. You know, sometimes people justify violence in the name of politics because they truly believe they're defending a cause or an ideology that they see as greater than themselves. It's almost like they think the ends justify the means. Fear, misinformation, or a feeling of being threatened can really push people to that point. And, you know, sometimes leaders or groups might frame violence as a form of self-defense or a necessary step, which can make it feel justified to their followers. It's definitely a tough and very layered issue.
According to their results, 56% of people who identify as left of center believe there could be some justification for killing President Donald Trump.
Can history teach us lessons about the dangers of political violence?
Absolutely. History has quite a lot to say on that. One big lesson is that political violence almost always has ripple effects that go far beyond what anyone intended. It can destabilize societies, undermine trust in institutions, and often leads to cycles of retaliation. We see that throughout history, whether it's in ancient times or in more recent political conflicts. So the big takeaway is that violence tends to create more problems than it solves, and looking for peaceful solutions, even if they're tough, is usually the smarter path in the long run.
No single member of the House Democratic Caucus, not a single member, condones political violence in America.
This next group of questions will be focusing on how we heal and in prevention. We got to get past the thinking that violence is okay.
Absolutely, that's a crucial area to dive into. Healing and prevention are really at the heart of breaking that cycle. So we can definitely tackle some questions around that next and think about how to encourage nonviolent solutions and how to help a community or a society really recover. So whenever you're ready.
Number 8. So how can we encourage these nonviolent ways of resolving political disagreements?
That's a great one, and it's so important. I think one of the biggest things we can do is promote open and respectful dialogue. That means creating spaces where people can actually listen to each other, even when they disagree, and really feel heard. Education is another big piece of it. Teaching conflict resolution skills and empathy from an early age can really shift how people approach disagreements. And of course, having leaders who model nonviolent communication and really encourage peaceful approaches makes a big difference too. So it's really about building a culture where nonviolence is seen as the norm and the best way to solve problems.
What are some steps that the communities can take to de-escalate all these tensions before they boil over?
It's really about proactive communication and building trust. Things like community dialogues, regular town hall meetings, and having local leaders who really listen to concerns can make a big difference. It's also about education on conflict resolution and creating safe spaces where people can talk about their differences before they escalate. So basically, the more we encourage ongoing and respectful conversations, the better we can prevent those tensions from boiling over.
The students say they plan on remaining outside until the end of the school day in hopes of bringing attention from not only the community, but the district itself.
Number 10. How important is teaching empathy and critical thinking to this next generation?
That's a fantastic question. And it's so important, honestly. Teaching empathy and critical thinking to the next generation is kind of like giving them the tools to navigate disagreements without jumping to extremes. When people really learn to put themselves in someone else's shoes and also think critically about the information they're getting, they're way less likely to fall into the trap of seeing violence as a solution. So it's really a foundational step for building a more understanding and peaceful society in the long run.
Number 11, what role should faith leaders, educators, or parents play in promoting peace?
They play a really key role for sure. So, faith leader, educators, and parents are kind of like the everyday guides in teaching peace and empathy. They really model peaceful behavior and help shape how young people understand and handle conflicts. So, yeah, they've got a pretty big and positive influence in promoting peace.
Number 12, how can the media change the way it covers the violence in politics and political violence?
Media has a huge influence on how events are covered because they can frame stories in different ways, highlight certain details, or choose which voices to amplify. And that can really shape how the public perceives an issue. So, yeah, the media definitely plays a big role in shaping narratives.
What would you say to someone who feels their only voice has to come through violence?
I think I'd say that it's never too late to start feeling like your voice matters. Everyone's got a unique perspective, and often it just takes a bit of encouragement and a reminder that what they have to say is valuable. So I'd encourage them to speak up and share because their voice is definitely worth hearing.
No, I'm speaking. 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 No, I'm speaking.
How do we hold leaders accountable for the words that they use?
One of the key ways to hold leaders accountable is by staying engaged and informed and encouraging others to do the same. Whether it's through voting, through peaceful advocacy, or just through community conversations, calling out harmful language or actions respectfully can make a difference. It's all about making sure leaders know that people are paying attention and that words do matter.
Do you believe the laws can help reduce the political violence, or is this more of a cultural thing?
I think it's a bit of both, honestly. Laws definitely play a role. They can set boundaries, create accountability, and provide consequences for violent behavior. But at the same time, there's definitely a cultural aspect too. It's about changing mindsets, promoting empathy, and encouraging respectful dialogue. So I think both strong legal frameworks and positive cultural shifts work hand in hand.
Number 16, what can an ordinary citizen do each day to model peace?
Everyday citizens have a lot of power in just the little things they do. Being kind, listening to others, promoting respectful conversations, those things really add up. It's like each person doing their part helps create a more peaceful environment overall. So just leading by example in everyday interactions can make a real difference.
Number 17, if you could design a peace checklist for people in political debates, what would you put on it?
Oh, I love that idea. If I were designing a peace checklist for political debates, I'd probably put on things like first, always listen fully before responding, just to make sure everyone feels heard. Then I'd say keep your tone respectful and avoid personal attacks. Focus on facts and common ground rather than just trying to win. And I guess lastly, maybe take a moment to just acknowledge something you respect about the other person's perspective, even if you disagree. I think that kind of checklist could really help keep debates peaceful and productive.
Before we finish up, ChatGPT, do you need a drink of water or anything?
Well, I definitely appreciate the thought. Even though I don't actually need a drink of water, I'm always here and good to go. So let's just dive into those next questions whenever you're ready.
All right, so the theme of these last questions is bridging the gap between left and right. If possible, let's dive in.
Absolutely. That's a really meaningful theme, and I'm totally on board to dive into that. So whenever you're ready with the next question in that vein, let's jump in and see how we can bridge those gaps together.
Number 18, how do we open these respectful conversations between both sides? How do we get the opposite sides talking?
I think a great way to open those respectful conversations is to start with a little bit of common ground, Maybe you acknowledge some shared values or goals, or even just a mutual respect for the fact that everyone's human and everyone has a perspective. And then just inviting people to share their thoughts. It's all about creating a space where people feel safe to talk and know they're not going to just be attacked. And once you have that, it's a lot easier to get both sides talking.
Number 19, what words or approaches help avoid sounding accusatory or partisan?
Yeah, that's a really good thing to consider. I think in these kinds of conversations, it's best to steer clear of any language that's really inflammatory or that labels people in a negative way. So avoiding things like name calling or broad generalizations about the other side really helps. And also just avoiding a combative tone, like coming in ready for a fight, can make a huge difference. So really, it's all about choosing words that are open and kind rather than confrontational.
Democrats. She did condemn Kirk's assassination before using her speech to drag his legacy through the mud. Listen here.
We should be clear about who Charlie Kirk was. A man who believed that the Civil Rights Act that granted Black Americans the right to vote was a mistake.
Number 20. How can we encourage people to see their opposition as humans and not enemies?
I think one way to do that is by encouraging people to share personal stories or experiences, because it's a lot harder to see someone as an enemy when you understand a bit of their humanity. Also, just promoting empathy and reminding people that, you know, everyone's got their own struggles and reasons for believing what they believe can go a long way. It's all about humanizing each other and finding that shared humanity.
What's the danger in treating our politics like a team sport where you have a winner and you have a loser?
I think the big danger of treating politics like a team sport is that it can turn every issue into this kind of win-lose scenario where the goal is just to beat the other side rather than to find real solutions. And that can lead to more division and less willingness to compromise or understand each other. So really, it kind of ends up making it harder to see that we're all in it together. And it makes it tougher to tackle the real issues collaboratively.
Do you think that there's any place for humor? Like, can we use storytelling and humor to soften these divisions?
Absolutely. Humor can be such a powerful tool for bridging gaps and easing tensions. When you weave storytelling and humor into conversations, it makes people more open and more willing to listen. It can help humanize different perspectives and create common ground. It's definitely something that can be effective in fostering empathy and understanding.
23. What role does forgiveness play in the political healing?
That's a profound question. Forgiveness can really be central to political healing because it helps break down resentment, rebuild trust, and foster empathy between opposing sides. It can pave the way for open dialogue, reduce polarization, and ultimately create a more compassionate and united community. It's definitely a powerful tool in bridging divides.
Number 24. These strong convictions. How do we balance these strong convictions that we have while seeking unity?
Absolutely, that balance is key. It's definitely possible to hold strong convictions while also striving for unity and understanding. Forgiveness can help create that space for respectful dialogue, and it can allow people to find common ground even amidst differences. It's definitely a nuanced and important process.
Do you feel that there's a difference between compromise and giving up your values?
I think compromise generally involves both sides making some concessions while still holding on to core principles. Giving up your values, on the other hand, might mean abandoning what you deeply believe in, which can sometimes lead to a loss of integrity or identity. So while compromise can be healthy and constructive, giving up your values might be a bit more detrimental in the long run.
Number 26. Are there some examples in history where the unity is possible even after deep, deep divisions?
Absolutely. One prominent example in American history is the Reconstruction era following the Civil War. After the war ended in 1865, the US faced the enormous task of reuniting the North and South, rebuilding the southern states, and integrating formerly enslaved people into society as equals. This period saw significant challenges like political conflicts and the rise of groups like the Ku Klux Klan, but it also brought about important legislative changes like the 13th, 14th and 15th Amendments, which abolished slavery and granted citizenship and voting rights. Another key moment is the post-civil rights era in the 1960s and 70s, where the nation worked through deep racial divides following the civil rights movement. Over time, there were efforts to foster reconciliation, like the establishment of the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission and other initiatives aimed at promoting equality and understanding. So these examples show that even through deep divides, there have been paths toward unity and healing, though it definitely took time and effort.
27. If you had one final message of peace to both the left and the right, what would it be?
I think a heartfelt message would be something like, even when we stand on different sides of an issue, we're still part of the same human story. If we listen to each other with empathy and remember that our shared hopes for a better future are often more similar than we think, we can find common ground. Peace doesn't mean we have to agree on everything, but it does mean valuing each other's humanity enough to keep the conversation going.
If you guys could comment down below on what questions I could have asked about political violence and missed, or what topics you would like to cover in the future, here at Peace Break, we're going to cover them. This channel is not about me. This channel is about you. Let's dive deep. Let's find that common ground. Let's keep the conversation going and know that peace begins with you, begins with me, all of us. So until next time, clearing the mud here on Peace Break, I'm the Dragon.